Have you ever stopped to think that maybe we're all addicts? Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Late Night Advice, and today we're going to actually be talking a little bit about addiction. When you first hear the word addiction, you probably think of two things. One, AA meetings, or two, hardcore drugs. From the time that you were old enough to comprehend what drugs, alcohol actually were, you probably knew what addiction was as well. The biggest problem that a lot of people have when they talk about addiction is they specifically talk about the substance and not the actual cause of addiction. You see, when we speak of addiction, there's actually three different ways and three different kinds of addiction. The first one is the most commonly talked about, which is biological addiction. Biological addiction, I don't really need to tell you because you've probably heard it in your health class a million times, is essentially the idea of how the substance that you take in and how it reacts with the chemicals in your brain. And as good as information this can be to understand how our brain works and how possibly certain substances can affect our brain, it is also very limited in actually helping us to understand really where addiction comes from. Addiction has been on the rise in recent years. The kind of addiction that we're talking about here isn't the kind that comes from substances that you inhale or drink, but it comes from the very things that probably lie in your pocket right now. Technology. I'm not saying that technology is inherently evil and then it's this device that it's created to keep us addictive. Rather, what I'm saying is that as we can start to look at the reason why people are addicted to things like video games, social media, pornography, we can perhaps better understand what is actually missing in these people's lives. You have probably heard the phrase of addictive personality, in which it's a way that we've kind of said that really substances in and of themselves aren't addictive, but rather people themselves have a tendency to just be addicted to things. In Manoush Zomorodi's book, Bored and Brilliant, she has an entire chapter talking about the addiction that we have to our devices, in which one of the things that she discusses is that it's not these devices in and of themselves that are addictive, or even our own personalities that have a tendency to be addictive. Rather, it is the circumstances we place ourselves in, that we can find ourselves in, that make these things addictive. We're going to come back to this idea in a little bit, but I kind of want to delve into this idea of addictive circumstances. One way in which we understand addiction is that there's a part of your brain known as the nucleus accumbens, and it's responsible for memory and habit formation. A lot of drugs and alcohol tend to stimulate the nucleus accumbens, which is why it's often very hard to break these kinds of addictions. Addictions to video games or social media or anything else that's not a particular substance will not actually physically stimulate the nucleus accumbens. What happens instead is that once you have formed a habit, the nucleus accumbens become stimulated as you partake in that activity. So one way we can understand addiction is to understand how we make and break habits. In Charles Duhigg's book, The Power of Habit, a habit is created when a certain stimulus solicits a certain response. An example of this might be when you first wake up in the morning, you go and get a glass of water, or you work out, or whatever other habits that you have formed early in the morning. One way that this addiction can become such a problem is that when we often turn to our devices in a way to escape the problems of our life. An example of this is that when you feel bored, you perhaps turn to your phone, or when you feel anxiety, you will turn on a video game. Whatever it might really be, we can often use technology as a way to divert ourselves from what we're actually feeling. And then when we feel those emotions even stronger, we turn to those devices as a source of comfort or as a way to escape our mind from the things that are around us. One of the easiest ways that we can avoid addiction and help others overcome addiction is to, instead of running away from our problems, we need to face them. One of the common problems that is faced with individuals who have such addictions, and I know this comes from personal experience, is that we often have a feeling of a desire to be connected with other people. And actually this goes even beyond just our addiction to technology, and in fact even to the source of addiction to drugs and alcohol. There once was a study of rats regarding addiction to heroin. One such study had a rat isolated in a cage and only had the two options of the heroin and normal water. On the other hand, there was another experiment done in which a rat was given plenty of place to play, was surrounded with many rats, and what they found in contrasting these studies was that when the mice were isolated, they often turned to the water that had the heroin. On the other hand, when the mice were surrounded in a powerful, loving environment with much to do and many people to be around, they often completely avoided the bottle that had the heroin in it. So the way we can look at addiction is, rather than just looking at the substances and the devices in and of themselves, we need to look deeper at our own personal problems. What is it that we actually desire? What is it that we really need deep down? What need needs to be fulfilled? And I'm not saying that all cases are like this, but what I am saying is that we need to be aware of what exactly it is that we really need when we decide to turn to an object or another substance. And that we also need to learn to actually face our problems. If we're feeling alone, we shouldn't be spending hours upon hours on social media trying to feel a connection with someone else. Rather, we should go out and actually try to make real life connections with people, trying to go and do things, and really find that bond that we're missing. Now, I realize if you're like me, you're kind of an introvert and don't really like to get out with a bunch of people all the time and doing things, that's totally fine. But we do need to take time, just a little bit, to be able to establish strong connections with other people. Something that Seth Godin pointed out in his book Tribes was that all human beings have a desire to be part of some kind of group. Why do you think that people take so much pride in loving a show with other people, or being fans of the same football team? It's because there is this deep desire within each of us to be connected with other human beings. So next time you're drawn in to want to play your favorite video game, watch a movie, or get on Facebook, take a moment and ask yourself, am I getting on because I really want to, or because I'm trying to escape a problem? Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit that subscribe button below. And also, if you disagree with me in any way regarding the content that I'm putting here, please leave a comment, and I would love to discuss different ideas and have different inputs regarding this. And also, if you have an idea for a video, please leave an idea below in those comments. I love hearing ideas and would appreciate some of your feedback. Hope you guys have a great week, and I look forward to the next video.